Wow. Well, welcome to today's event. My name is Chad Reyes, and I'm so excited to have you involved in this conversation. You know, many of you know that AI is changing everything. It's changing everything around business, everything around leading. And me and some of my friends today, we're just going to share with you what we're seeing as we're working with clients all over the country, even internationally, and just want to open up a conversation around something that's so important right now. You know, if you've been in business long enough, you know that leading is not easy. Now, leading with AI is even that much more complex. And I'm excited to have this conversation with you. I'm excited to spend the next 90 minutes with you as we kind of unpack this whole leading through AI. You know, today is going to be it's going to be based on two parts. The first part is I have a dear friend of mine, an AI expert, Elijah Lowe, who's going to be joining me in a conversation, and we're just going to be sharing for the first half of it what we're seeing, some of the things, and some of our thoughts on leading through AI. And then what we're going to be doing in the second part is we're going to be inviting some of our friends to join us. We have one of our friends is a gentleman who's the managing partner of an international of a franchise law firm that deals with all franchises and emerging brands. His name's Brian Linser, and then we have another friend of ours, which is Sonia Smith, and she heads up the New York Small Business Development Corporation, and so she oversees 20, 30,000 businesses in the state of New York. And I know AI is a big thing for them as well. So we're going to have a great conversation. I want to jump in though. I want to kind of just share a little bit. As many of you know, that's my information. You can scan my QR code and go to my LinkedIn. And this is Elijah Lowe for the first part of our convo. But I do want to discuss this. Many years ago, I I had heard an interview that was done, and it was an interview with the gentleman on the screen, Wayne Gretzky. And the interviewer had asked Wayne, they said, Wayne, you're like the greatest or one of the greatest hockey players that ever played. He said, what makes you different than everyone else? And this was his statement. He said, and the quote is paraphrasing, but he basically said this. He said, most hockey players are going to where the puck is. I skate to where the puck is going. You see, business leaders so often they're going to where the puck is instead of going to where the puck is going. And this conversation today is where the puck is going. So be prepared because that's what we're going to be talking about, not where it is. Some of the things I'm going to share with you today, some of the things my friends and I are going to share, it may challenge our thoughts and belief system, but that's okay because our goal is that we'll be going to where the puck is going, not where it is. You know, I just want to bring this up and then we're going to jump into a conversation. On the screen right now, you see 7 letters. Now, many people that are looking at this, they're going to see this, that opportunity is nowhere when it comes to AI. But what I want to challenge you is to look at it through this lens, that opportunity is now here. You see, what's powerful about that is when we change the lens of what we're looking at, what we see changes. And that's the conversation today with leading through AI. So I wanna bring on my friend, one of the smartest guys I know, AI expert. I call him our AI samurai. I want to bring on Elijah Lowe to join me in today's conversation. And we're going to jump into a conversation about leading through AI and what are the different aspects of AI. And I'm going to bring up a slide. Well, one of the things that we're going to do, so Elijah, just jump on the camera. So one of the things we're going to do is we're going to have some images on the screen so you could see them, but we're not going to be doing a PowerPoint. Elijah and I are going to be having a conversation around some of these so that you can get context, and then we're going to open up later in the part 2 for some Q&A, and you'll be able to put your questions in there. So you could start, as you have questions, put them in the Q&A section, and then what will happen is as my wife and business partner leads and facilitates the second part, we'll have all of those questions in the queue. So Elijah, welcome, my friend.
Thanks, Chad. It's great to be on with you. I think this is a really amazing, timely topic. that is going to affect any leader right now in the business world.
Yeah, could not agree more. So Elijah, on the screen, we're seeing this out there with Harvard Business Review and a lot of organizations. Can you kind of just unpack this? Just share a little bit about why people are you like how is AI changing the whole business world and the leadership world?
Yeah, Chad. So what I think there's a number of these very new. So there's very few studies right now, but even with the studies that are coming out, what we can see is that AI is making very dramatic impact
Hmm.
in certain companies. Okay, so when you look at a number like this, okay, where Harvard Business School with Boston Consulting did a study, and they found that on average, people who use AI at work were 25% faster and 45% higher in the quality of work. Now you got to
Yeah,
understand that this is an average. What this actually means is that half the companies in this study did way better than that, and the other half did worse. Okay,
yeah,
so the gap between those who actually use AI versus those who don't is not 25 and 40. It's some number north of that because this is the
yeah,
average. That means half the companies that do it well do really well. Like for example, Walmart. Walmart is like one of those companies that do a really great job at implementing technology. Just in one department alone, they managed to reduce costs by like 99%. Okay,
yeah.
that's huge, when you talk to like a company like Walmart for a specific department. Other companies I know they've managed to be able to increase output by like 2x with the same amount of cost.
Yeah.
So for the companies that are implementing AI, what we are seeing in the marketplace right now, there's a big difference. And I totally agree with you. Sometimes it's not just about what technology to implement. A lot of it is really about the leadership of the company, how the company leads its organization through this AI transformation.
Yeah. Elijah, I'm thinking about it, and you and I have spoken about this, and we talk about this when we do conferences all over the world, actually. And one of the things that I'm kind of concerned on is that in the earlier part right now, I don't think people are going to see it impact their business to this level, but I do see it impacting pretty significantly in the future. And what I mean by that is how can companies that are not using AI in the future compete on price or quality? So think about it, like if if the quality of the work with organizations that are using AI is better because they're getting higher level of knowledge, wisdom, research, and then the price is going to get pushed down because ultimately, you're using something that's technology driven instead of labor driven. I can't see companies in the future that are not embracing the use of AI to help them innovate, to help them stay ahead. Kind of like the example I was giving before when it came to where's the puck going. How are companies going to compete on price and quality in the future if they're not, if their competitors are using AI and they're not? Like, what are you seeing? What are your thoughts on that?
So I'll share a recent example, something that I noticed recently, and I think this is going to really help you understand the difference. This has to do with commercial real estate. Okay, two companies. I was in meetings with both of them. I'm going to change the name
Yeah,
to keep them anonymous, but both these two companies are both in the commercial real estate space. Okay, and both of them wanted to have their analysts learn about AI. The first company, a much larger company, had their top analysts sit down to learn about AI and how it could help him. He shared his biggest pain, in the first meeting. The second meeting demonstrated what AI can do. Third meeting, and he totally shut down. Okay. When he saw what AI could do, he totally checked out. When I talk checked out, I mean, he like refused to engage. He refused to look up. He just stared at his phone and just scrolled social media. This is the top analyst in their company. Okay. And now I'll show you the example of the company. Second company, much smaller company, had the analysts go through the same process. Okay, share their problems, their pain. Next meeting, did a demo, what AI can do. In the third meeting, guess what? he saw some of the results of what AI could do for his business. Within 48 hours, he put an LOI on a $10 million property because of what the
Wow.
AI showed him. Okay. So, two examples. So, what is the difference between the two? Okay. For the first company, what happened was that his boss basically told him, hey, here's some new AI tools. Why don't you have a meeting with them and take a look at it? Okay. Didn't give him any information or lead him as to what to expect. And what happened was that when he saw the tools, he became so fearful of his job, okay, because he
Mm.
realized AI would replace him. And he totally shut down after that. And he just cannot engage. The second analyst, his boss told him, hey, you're going to learn some AI tools. But if you can get these AI tools to work and we could increase our business, I'm going to give you a part of that increase,
Yep.
So
That's leads.
because exactly. And that's the only difference between the first company and second company was what his manager or his boss did before the meeting. And it was just a few statements,
Yeah,
and
it's
that made
good.
all the difference. So but and so I asked the second analyst, so usually without AI, how long would it take you to find a property like this? And he went, maybe about 6 months to 8 months. So what would have taken him 6 to 8 months, he was able to do in like a couple of days.
Yeah, it comes back to
So,
what I shared in the beginning, right?
mhm,
Opportunity is nowhere or it's now here. But if those companies looked, both companies looked at it through a different lens. One saw nowhere and one saw now here, and it changes the outcome. And I think for leaders, that's so key. I want to pivot to this next slide, and you and I have a conversation on it.
mhm,
You know, we were in Seattle speaking at a conference, and we were talking about AI, the whole conference. And one of the things that I think is so important, I think businesses and leaders need to get their arms around, is this whole concept of IQ, EQ, and AQ. And you could see it on the screen. We didn't have them slide up as a PowerPoint, so you could take pictures of them if you want to. Feel free to take pictures of them, but I really think that the future of business is not based on how smart we are. The truth of it is that our whole education system has been based on how smart we are, but really the future of business and the future of leadership is how emotionally, the EQ, how emotionally intelligent we are and how adaptable we are to grow and develop. And on the slide there, you can see that, right? IQ, this is our opinion. So this is not based on data, but this is based on, I believe leaders see more than they see before. And when I look at where the world's going, I look where technology's going, and I really try to have my finger on the pulse of a lot of this. I think that the IQ becomes greatly reduced because you can have AI that can process data and it can apply the info, it can memorize, it can understand huge data points that the greatest MIT graduates can't even process at that level. So I really think that the future of AI is really, from a leading through AI perspective, is how do we get people to be able to express themselves better and be able to understand themselves better and build better relationships and make better decisions with the use of AI. So allowing AI to give them data points so they can make better decisions. So I'd love to kind of get your thoughts on this, Elijah, because you're really you're one of the brightest people I know when it comes to AI, and I just want to hear your opinion on this.
Chad, I absolutely agree with you on this one. I think that, especially with the new AI large language models that are coming out, you know, people that are able to use that, would be able to function uh, as though they are partnering with a really smart person. So that IQ requirement for people to have very high IQ to produce, high quality work would start to diminish, as a
Yeah.
requirement. It doesn't mean that that's not good. It's still good, it's still valuable, but it's as a factor of success, the weight of it is not really as high anymore. I
Mm.
think that you're absolutely right. The emotional quotient, the ability to lead other people all of a sudden become more important because think about this way. If you're leading a team of 5 people, okay, you have 2 teams, okay. One is a leader that's leading 5 people of moderately qualified engineers, okay, and then a second team with a leader that have the top minds in engineering in his team, 5 of them, okay. Who would come up with a better product? Well, if they both implement AI, okay, all of a sudden now the team with mediocre engineers, the AI could code for them, could design products for them, could do it at a quality much higher than the second team with the top engineers. So the
Yeah,
gap between the engineering skills is not going to be that great. But what's going to make the difference is going to be the EQ and the AQ. It's
yeah,
the ability for the leader to inspire the engineering team. It's for the ability for the leader to help them navigate the changes that are taking place. The ability for the teams to adapt to new technology that's going to come out at a much more rapid pace. You see, AI is not just a new technology. AI is going to speed up the process of all other technology in the world in terms of how fast the research is done, how fast the application is developed. So the ability to adapt in a world that is changing much faster in the next 5 years than what it has in the last 50 years, I think is going to be absolutely key, for companies that will succeed or those who will lose market share.
yeah. To that point, AQ, and we talk about this often, AQ is the ability to anticipate change, the ability to prepare for change, and then the ability to benefit from change. And I think a lot of business leaders they're anticipating that AI is going to change the world. It's going to change how they do business. So they're anticipating. Some of them are even preparing for it. But what I've found is very few people are figuring out how to benefit from it. And I think that's the real key. If there's anything that I want people to really leave from this conversation that we're having, is I want them to say, how can I use AI to accomplish the vision that we have more effectively so that we could benefit from the change of AI? Because I think that there's going to be greater opportunities, but you have to look at it through an opportunity is now here lens. And if we focus on the nowhere lens, it'll limit creativity. I want to share this one last thing, and then we'll jump into the next slide. Um, Miles Monroe, he said this. He said, the ability to manage change is the most important skill in leadership. And one of the things that I want to share around this is that it's food for thought. And if anyone that's on the call on today's virtual fireside chat, if you have questions, you can put it in the chat box and we'll talk about it later. But the thing that I'm seeing with leaders is that you're going to have people that sound smarter than they actually are. Let me give you an example. If I go into my phone and I type into ChatGPT, tell me about the history of XYZ. In 5 minutes, I'll have statistics. In 5 seconds, I'll have statistics. I'll have reports. I'll have stories. I'll have predictions. I'll have all of these things at the fingertips. So I'll speak as if I have authority, but I really don't have moral authority. Because moral authority is not knowing information, it's being able to have worked with it and understand it at a very deep level. And I think that's going to be one of the biggest struggles that businesses are going to have to navigate through in the future is you're going to have people that, because they have access to AI, they may have access to a lot of data and a lot of information and a lot of systems and structures and processes, but they may not know what to do with it because they haven't built that skill set and that muscle. And I think as a leader, you got to be aware of, how am I leading someone who has all of this knowledge, but maybe doesn't have that emotional intelligence yet and doesn't have the experience and doesn't know how to deal with setbacks because their information they're bringing to the table is world-class MIT information, but it doesn't mean that they have world-class experience. And as a leader, we got to be able to delicately balance those two. So I'm excited about that opportunity, but I also think it's something that leaders really have to be thinking about. I don't know if you want to share on that, or maybe we'll jump to the next conversation.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you on that one. Um, that that's kind of things that leaders really need to be thinking about right now.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's jump on this. I think this is a conversation for everyone that would be very valuable. These are the four areas that when we're working with companies, we're working with organizations, whether it's a Fortune 100, Fortune 200 company, or it's a growth-minded entrepreneur, we're talking about these four lids. These are the things that organizations are struggling through, right? They're struggling through thoughts and beliefs. They're struggling through leadership ability, building the skill set to lead, and then organizational alignment and systems processes. I'd like, if we can, I'd like to just talk about lid one and lid four because we don't have enough time to go through all of them today. But I do want to share lid one, and then maybe Elijah, you can just speak to how is this impacting the use of AI. So in lid one, I often teach that our thoughts impact our belief systems. Our belief systems impact our behaviors, and our behaviors create our results. So I'll just walk you through that again. Thoughts impact beliefs, beliefs impact behaviors, behaviors create results. So right now, a lot of people are trying to get better results with the use of AI, but those results are based on a belief system. And that's the reason why I think it's so important that organizations build healthy belief systems around AI, because what will happen is you said it with the real estate company before, Elijah. The first company, the belief system is, I'm going to lose my job. I'm not going to be valuable. I'm going to be out of work. So what happens is their behavior shuts down. I'm not learning it and not realizing that if they shut down and they don't embrace it, eventually it's going to be a self-fulfilling prophecy. They're actually going to wind up losing the job because you can't compete then with your competitors that are using some of this technology at that level. So when it comes to beliefs driving behaviors that impact results, what are you seeing in the AI world?
Yes, and like coming back to the example, let me give you a little bit of insight of that first analyst. Okay, he was an analyst in a very niche area of commercial real estate where there wasn't any analyst for that specific asset class. So he actually pioneered the analysis for that asset class. And he was a very bright guy. He was very smart. But it all came down to his thoughts and beliefs. Okay. And
Mm.
because, like you said, he thought that AI would make his entire, skill set obsolete or worthless, it totally shut him down. And I think that you will find that thoughts and belief, ironically, affect the people with the most amount of skill. So
Yeah,
what happens is that in an organization, the people that are
well,
the highest performing people in your company in the pre-AI world, could sometimes be the ones with the strongest belief, that could be anti-AI or anti the progress that you're trying to make in the company because their success was built on their abilities and skills. Okay.
yeah,
So I think that, when it comes to companies, thoughts and beliefs, drive a lot of your ability to implement AI within the company. Because,
yeah,
like the one that I showed you, the example was quite extreme. I've never seen people react like that. Usually what they would do is that they would show a more accepting front, and then behind the scene, they'll do everything they can to dismantle or to slow down the implementation of AI. you
yeah.
know?
But Elijah,
So
what's interesting to that is, like, when you think about it, it really it's like this catch 22, because I resist it. I do everything possible to stop it, but it really, that's where the puck is going. But then it becomes like this self-fulfilling prophecy that, like, eventually they can't compete, so they're out of a job, and now they need to go to another competitor who's using AI and they don't have the skill set. So it really is like, learn the skill set, learn how to lead in an AI-driven world so that you don't put yourself in that position. Even as an employer, as an employee, we all have to adapt. This is not something that I'm not having to adapt to. I'm having to adapt and learn just like our team members are doing that. But resisting only postpones it and kicks the can down the curb to an inevitable position and decision that's going to have to be made at some point in the future.
and I'll add one more to it. if you have an organization that have multi levels of leadership of hierarchy, the higher the person is, the greater the amplification of the impact of these thoughts and belief. Okay, let me
Yep.
give you a specific example. I was just talking to the CTO of a university in, let's just say, the Northeast, okay, so that we don't point out the university. And because the leadership, someone very high up in the organization, doesn't agree with AI and the future that AI is leading the world,
Yep.
so the entire organization is not allowed to use any AI tool, including the IT department. So now the IT department have to manually do a lot of things where most other organizations within the same education field have fully automated with AI.
Yeah, how are they even going to compete with other organizations, other universities that are using AI? It's kind of like it I understand the rationale because fear, fear sometimes is predictably irrational, right? Like it doesn't make sense and it's irrational, but yet we still do it, right? But
Mm-hmm.
how are they going to compete with a university that's using it? Eventually, the amount of students that are attending is going to go down, the amount of
Mm-hmm.
innovation, because think about it, those students that are coming into that university that is AI averse, they're not going to go into an AI driven world and be prepared for it because it's not being embraced at a university high level from the senior
Yeah.
leaders.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
the higher the person is, the
Yep.
greater the impact on the organization in the thoughts and beliefs.
Yeah, it's wow. Later on we'll go through and we'll talk further through the four phases of artificial intelligence because I think that's really important for people to understand the methodology that you created on how to embrace AI in an organization. But I
Mm-hmm.
do want to jump to this for a moment. This is an early adoption. This is an adoption curve to technology. And when as Elijah and I were preparing to share with you today, him and I we're talking about where is AI, not AI from from a knowledge standpoint, but where is it from an adoption perspective? Like how are companies really adopting it and leaders adopting it? And we really believe that right now AI is right here. It's in the very early stages of adoption, not marketing, not stuff that you see all over in articles. I'm talking about adoption into a company and them using it and it becoming part of all their systems and processes. We really believe that we're right in that early in the innovator early adopters phase. And I got to tell you that I think that that's the greatest opportunity. I just want to give you three things in this area. When we embrace this as now here, the first thing is we get the ability to seize an opportunity. There's if we were talking and we were looking at the late majority and the laggards, there's no more opportunity. If you're not doing it, you're out of business. Right now, there's tremendous opportunity because you're in the early stages of it, of bringing it into organizations. The second is right now you can prepare for the shift. In 3 years from now, you're going to be consumed by the shift. You won't have a choice. And then the last is this allows you not to fall behind. Since we're so early in the stages, if you build the muscle of saying I'm going to embrace it, when I speak in at conferences, I do this often. I want to show you. I tell the person, I said, you have two ways. You could either lean back and say I'm going to resist, or you could do this. You can lean in. And if you lean in, you're going to be able to stay ahead of competitors. You're going to be able to embrace and really grow your organization without operating out of fear and really scarcity. So, Elijah, I don't know if you want to just kind of share a little bit about this from your perspective.
Yes, I think in where things are different now is because of the speed of acceleration. Okay.
Mm,
So what that's going to do is that in the past, let's say the innovators and early adopters had like a 20 to 20% advantage. Okay, whether you calculate that through efficiencies in cost or you calculate that in revenue growth or something like this. Um, uh, that's a huge advantage, but it's not necessarily going to put them out of business if you are not an early adopter. But I think because of the way AI has a potential to so dramatically change either the cost structure or the revenue structure of a business model,
Hmm.
what happens that the innovators and early adopters could potentially drive all their competitors out of business very, very quickly. Okay, so some of the numbers that we're seeing, we're not talking about 20, 30% increase. We're talking about like 2x, 3x increase. When we talk about cost saving, we're not talking about 10%, 20% cost saving. We're talking about 50% to 80%, 90% cost saving. So with these kind of numbers, the innovators and the early adopters, have a potential to really disrupt their entire industry.
Yeah. It's great for growth-minded entrepreneurs and great for growth-minded teams. But for those that are not growth-minded, this could be very scary for them.
Yeah,
Hey,
absolutely.
can you talk through this slide just a little bit? Because I know we're gonna have a conversation in about 15 minutes. We're gonna be jumping into a conversation with our panelists. We have Brian Linsa joining us, who's a managing partner of a franchise, an emerging brands franchise law firm, and then we have Sonia Smith, who heads up the New York Small Business Development Corporation. They're gonna join us in a conversation of what they're seeing. But can you kind of talk about this a little bit before we get to that?
Yeah. So AI, when we talk about AI, I think it's good to conceptually understand it as three different categories of AI. Okay. Something called narrow AI, AGI, and ASI. And conceptually, this is kind of the difference between the three groups. Narrow AI is where, you think about it as uh, a, a, a computer or a software that is trained to do one thing and do one thing really well. Okay. Things like self-driving cars, things like Siri, Alexa. Okay. So these are what we call narrow AI. If you think about it as like a single function. Okay. AGI is the idea that AI has gotten to a level where it's like a human brain, okay, like a human mind, where it can do everything a human can do. It's not just
Mm.
specific to one function. And then ASI just takes it to another level where, uh, where it says if AI can be trained to think like a human, why don't we just push it a little bit more where it becomes super intelligent, where it's way
Mm.
more intelligent than even a human. Okay. And from a thoughts and belief system, the way you need to think about it is that the productivity increase that we're seeing in companies are really coming from the narrow AI tools. Okay. But the fear of the employees and the people in the organization or even people in leadership is really a fear that comes from the AGI and the ASI, which in reality, we don't actually have that. Okay. And no
Mm.
one really knows if we're going to have that 5 years later, 10 years later, or 500 years later. Okay. It's the holy
Yeah.
grail that we have not been able to cross. But what ChatGPT has done is that ChatGPT is a narrow AI, but it has inspired the idea that we're very close to achieving AGI. At the same time, it's invoked a huge amount of AI fear that it's really related to an AGI and ASI world. Okay. But that fear has crippled a lot of companies from even implementing narrow AI, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's a very powerful um, concept. When you and I talked through it, when we first started talking about AI, I didn't understand that concept because you kind of just think like AI, and all of a sudden like AI is just it's bundled in, but really AI is broken up into these three areas, and we're pretty far away from ASI right now. But people that don't know the differences in the different types of AI right now are really fearful that we're at ASI when we're not even close in your perspective.
Right.
Yeah. Hey, to talk about the factors of production. I think this is an important conversation that will frame our discussion in the next 5-10 minutes when we jump into the whole panel discussion.
So this is really on like a macroeconomic level that we need to understand. And I use factors of production because it is simple and easy for a lot of people to understand it. It's a 200-year-old theory by Adam Smith. And the theory goes something like this, it says to produce any goods or services, you need four major factors: land, labor, capital, and entrepreneurship. But more importantly, it suggests the idea that all these four factors are correlated to the production of goods and services. Okay. And what happened during the internet revolution, what we saw is that companies who understood this macroeconomic impact and they saw that what the internet did was to decouple the correlation between land and the production of goods and services. What that actually means is that it means that you do not need to increase land to increase your revenue for your business. Okay. And a good example of this would be a Blockbuster. Okay. Before the internet, if you ran the Blockbuster business, for you to increase your revenue, you needed to buy more land, you needed to open up more retail stores and to get more customers to increase your membership and your revenue. Okay.
Yep.
And what happened was that with the internet, you get companies like Netflix who could expand and scale their business. Now, they still needed land, they still needed to have offices to house their employees, but they did not need to increase the use of land to increase their revenues. There wasn't that correlation anymore. Okay. And companies who understood this, whether it's Netflix, Amazon, and what have you, all managed to scale their business without scaling the use of land. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, what people don't understand also is that Blockbuster knew about the streaming technology. They knew about the internet technology before even Netflix was born. Okay. So they were the early adopters of the technology. But because they didn't understand the economic impact of the technology, they could not shift their business model accordingly. Okay. So in the same way, AI is going to do the same thing. AI is not just about the technology. AI is about understanding how that's going to impact the macroeconomics of the business. Okay. And this has to do with the fact that whatever the internet did for land, AI is going to do for labor. So it doesn't mean that you do not need labor. It doesn't mean that you do not need employees. It means that you do not need to scale the use of labor to increase your revenues or your products and services. Does that kind of make sense?
For a second, Elijah?
Yeah.
And I think because I hear a lot of people say this, and I think this is something that'll probably come up in a discussion in a little bit. I think a lot of people are like, well, if I'm producing $1 million, make it simple. If you're doing 100 million times it by 100, if you're doing half of that divided by 2, but if you're producing $1 million and you need 4 people to produce $1 million, as an example, right? Well, with the same 4 people, maybe you could produce $4 million. What's happening is a lot of people are going into a scarcity mindset saying, well, I could cut down my people and I can literally get it down to 1 person and produce the $1 million. And my thought is, well, why would you do that? That doesn't, I wrote the book on Awaken Your Potential. Potential is reaching your potential, not reducing your expenses so that you can get the same results with less expenses. So if you can produce $1 million with 1 person, well, why not produce 4 million with 4 people then? Because it's the same, it's basically the same, it's one's a scarcity perspective and one's an abundance perspective. And that really leads to that whole, the AI impacting the labor market. I really think businesses need to really think through that. Like, do I want to be a business that I'm going to keep cutting my people so that I can keep my profit margin and the profit number? Or am I going to be a company that I'm going to literally use this to scale my business because I'm able to say I'm going to have people that are much more productive that can allow us to really grow over the future? And I'm choosing the latter, not the former.
Chad, I absolutely agree with you. And I think it comes back again to lead number 1, and it really is about the leader's thought and belief. Okay. So if you are a leader in an organization and your thought and belief is that, hey, I can use AI to reduce my labor costs, then that's how it's going to play out. But if you're a leader and you see AI as, hey, AI is going to allow me to amplify the human labor in my organization, then you're going to 2x, 3x, 4x your revenue.
That's a
it
good
really
word.
comes down to the leader's thoughts and beliefs.
Yeah. No, I couldn't agree more. Hey, Elijah, this is the last slide before we jump into our panel discussion. So we're going to ask, in about 2-3 minutes, we're going to ask my wife and business partner, Danielle, to join us. And she's going to lead us on a panel discussion with a few of our friends that leads some great organizations. But Elijah, let's talk through this, because one of the things that you and I have recognized is that people, and it kind of dovetails into what you just said, a lot of people are trying to figure out what to do with AI. It's if you haven't heard of it, you're living under a rock, right? And hello, we're living on Earth right now, right? So, but most people have heard about it. Most people are aware of it, aware that it's going to impact their business. Can you walk people through a methodical process? Now, granted, if they work with your company, if they work with your organization, great, but can you just walk them through a methodology of how to really engage and embrace AI so that they have the highest level of effectiveness in their organization if they do decide to really lean in? Can you share?
Chad, this model it comes from a lot of pain and heartache. I went through some incredibly painful experience to come about to this model. And I tell you why, because as a leader, when you first learn about AI and you realize what it can do for your organization, and of course, you immediately want to gravitate to some of the highest value projects or ideas, right? And so I'll share this from a personal experience. There was this organization that we were wanting to work with, and it's a fairly large organization, okay, in the professional service business. And so when we started working with them, and we had this really great idea of this AI product they could use that none of their competitors are using now. And through cross-selling, they could easily 20 to 30% increase their revenue, like off the bat with this new AI product. But because we didn't understand how, at the time it was very early days of AI as well, we didn't fully understand how AI adoption should take place in large organizations. So when we tried to bring in a really innovative AI product that would differentiate them from their competitors, the organization had a hard time accepting it or adopting the products or the ideas. And so what we learned from the process is that when you implement AI on an organization level, that is a process that could bring out more value than just trying to implement a great AI idea. Okay. And the process works something like this. Phase one, it's really trying to understand the values and the beliefs of the people in the different business units and departments of the organization, because you got to bring alignment there. If you don't bring alignment, you cannot get to phase two. Phase two is really helping the people in the organization, amplify their abilities with AI. Okay. And if you don't go through AI implementation in these stages, I'm not saying that AI implementation won't work, but I'm just saying that as a leader, you're gonna face some significant struggles and issue if you don't follow it in this sequence. Okay. So it's only after your people have the ability to amplify their success with AI, then you move to the next phase three. And that is really bringing AI into the processes to increase the efficiency of the process. The reason why that's phase three and not phase two is because when you implement this as phase three, you get a much higher acceptance rate. People are not afraid at that point of losing their job to AI. Okay. And so
Right.
they're on board, and they're going to support the process engineering a lot more. Okay.
It's a
And
good
then
point.
after you do phase three, that only then are you ready for phase four, which is really using AI to differentiate uh, your organization, your product, and your services in the market. Okay. Now, phase four is amazing because phase four is where you 10x the business, where you begin to really grab market share. But that doesn't mean that phase one to phase three don't have value. Phase one to phase three, I would say that, you could be anywhere from 20 to 80% of efficiency increase, just going
Yeah,
from phase one to phase three. Yeah.
that's good. Yeah, I wish when we first started having these conversations around AI, I wish we would have recognized this sooner. Listen, hindsight's always 2020, but the truth of it is that because we're in the early stages where we're still in the innovator early adopter phase, this, if an organization just does it this way, they build an awareness of AI, then they build people productivity, then they build process efficiency, then they create custom tailored technology that really multiplies their message. I don't think their competitors can compete with them because their competitors are not going about it through a method, through a very intentional methodology. They're just going about it, just saying, how do we implement? And that's the reason why I think leadership in AI is so key, because you could have leadership, you could be a great leader, but if you're not using AI, your company's not going to, I really believe you're not going to succeed. And you could be a great technology company with AI, but if you're not a good leader, you're not going to get buy-in. You need it needs the merging of the two. Um, Elijah, thank you. I thought that this is such a powerful conversation for where we are right now in the business world. And I want to hand it over to my wife and business partner, Danielle Reyes, to kind of take us on this next step of the process where we're really going to have a conversation around all of this. And I'm going to stop sharing my screen and we're going to open up for some conversation now.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, guys. I know we mentioned we're going to have some panelists join us. So as they come on, I just want to thank you, Chad and Elijah. It doesn't, I should say, as many times as we have shared this, it never gets old. It just keeps getting more exciting and more stuff. And I'm sitting here with my coffee and taking
There you
notes and
go.
just super excited for where we're going. But as Brian and Sonia join us.
All
Hey,
right.
how's it
Hey,
going?
guys.
Guys,
We got our friends with us today.
Awesome.
Good
That
afternoon.
was great.
Yeah.
very excited. So I'm just gonna, Brian, I just want to take a moment to introduce you and then I'll go to Sonia. But Brian, a highly experienced franchise attorney and managing partner at the Internicola law firm with a strong track record of success in franchise law. Brian is dedicated to providing clients with the highest legal level of legal services tailored to meet their unique needs. Brian has been such a great friend of ours for many years, and we've done work together, and we highly enjoy it and love what they're doing. Now, Sonia is a new friend, and I admire her. She had and her leadership. I'll just share a little bit about her. Sonia Smith serves as the state director of the New York Small Business Development Centers, hosted by SUNY. Smith is known for bringing together public-private partnerships and creating innovative programs to assist small businesses served by SBDC.
Yeah.
And
Oh, welcome to
Great.
the conversation. And we're
Great to
going
be
to add so
here.
much value.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
no, so grateful. I wanted to actually, we have some questions that came up in the queue, and I'll help navigate that. But while we do that, Brian, I want to start with you. What have you been hearing in your world with the emerging brands and franchise clients around AI?
Yeah, you know what? It's there are certain brands that are kind of I think you hit the nail on the head earlier. You know, Chad and Elijah saying like the early adopters, you kind of see it happening. In the franchise space, there's a lot of overlap as far as like services. So, for example, you have let's say a contact center, right? Where a contact center, like I want to book an appointment. It's a service-based company where they're using automation to facilitate that, and using AI to help, schedule appointments, do estimates, do things like that. And it's really driving, number one, if you ever dealt with a contractor, late, in the last few years, like getting a call back, you're kind of lucky. So this is kind of going to the other extreme where it's instantaneous response and adaptation and things like that. So some of the brands that are ahead on that curve are really adopting that stuff, and so it's really exciting, and it's really it's something that as we'll I'm sure we're going to talk about, like really changing the landscape of the franchising space, and you're going to see the differentiation between the brands that are adopting it and the ones that aren't. And all these efficiency numbers and all these I can see it kind of happening already.
I don't have the data yet, but you can see it just from having that view. So definitely certain people adopting it. Most aren't yet, but you have those few that are in that first part of the curve.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you for that. Right. And it's exactly what Elijah had shared before, right? With those two different organizations and their perspective on AI and the direction they were going in. It's so good. And Sonia, what about you? What have you been seeing with the SBDC with your smaller clients and your larger clients? What's the buzz about AI? I know it's we love it when technology works. It's amazing, and when it
You know? No, the little button got stuck, so I was on mute for a while. But no, I thank Chad and Elijah for the overview and the presentation about just leadership and how the connection with AI is going to be important on the decisions that we make in our organizations. What I'm seeing within my organization, as well as with small businesses, not just only in New York State, as a national organization. We have been lucky to partner with Google, so that whole grant program is a $10 million grant to really focus on AI curriculum development. So we're looking at one internally, how we can, I know one of the questions was about leaders getting back their time. I mean, in general, we talked about that on whether going from four employees and how you can maximize your revenue and grow your sales. But we can't get back our time. So how do we look at efficacy and efficiency and kind of mold the two? Efficacy is getting to, does it work? Are you finding solutions? And efficiency is how we streamline that and do it better. And
Yeah.
to get from point A to point B. And so we're looking at our internal organizations and utilizing AI. So we've had a committee at the national level for the past 2 or 3 years now, really, especially ones in remote areas like Alaska and New Mexico that have more probably more land and animals than they do people that are starting businesses. So they're looking at ways of like, hey, we have a small staff, we need to really look at our operations, which then shifted externally last year with the partnership with Google on how we can really help small businesses look at that. So it's not just the time and efficiency and looking at streamlining processes, managing data, looking at applications across the board. But then it's also like privacy issues and things that you can share. Are you using a closed chat GPT? Are you looking at, chat dynamics where you can add teams to those different departments? So, we're seeing small businesses being more and more interested in it, and kind of starting to lose the fear of it. As another question talked about the transition from, the age of internet. And it's the same thing. This is something new with technology, which will probably in the next 5 years seem kind of so far gone and like just part of our day-to-day type of activities as we use our cell phones.
Hmm.
With that being said, this relationship now has helped us focus on the small business aspect and externally on being able to develop curriculum, being able to develop clinics for small businesses on different topics around AI, and then also being able to partner the SBDCs. Most of us are housed at universities and colleges, so that is another way that we tap into faculty and students and programs. For instance, Buffalo, Albany just got the big computer, the AI computer that was launched this week. So we're pulling in all of those resources as well as an SBDC to say, like, this is your next pipeline of working individuals that are actually learning about this now. And so, sorry, I know I gave a long answer, but I was trying to pull everything together.
No, it's good.
That's what
No,
we're really doing internally and also with small businesses.
yeah, no, that's great. And I know that we have some people on here actually that are asking some really great questions that we're going to get to. But thank you guys for sharing. I want all of you to actually help participate. Share your perspective, share some of your insight. We have a wealth of wisdom right here on our panel. So right here, we have somebody who asked, how can companies avoid dropping important features when implementing AI solutions? Feature matching existing systems to important to avoid a backlash. Hope I hope I read that right.
Can you just read it one more time?
Sure. It says, how can companies avoid dropping important features when implementing AI solutions? Feature matching existing systems and important to avoid a backlash.
Elijah, that's you.
Okay, so without a lot of context, I got to make a few assumptions here. Okay, when we're talking about feature, uh, is I assume that this has to do with AI modeling. Now we're getting into some very technical aspect of developing AI models, and so features are inputs that drive the AI models. Okay, so I think just the phrase important features is the question is who's determining what features are important. Okay, traditionally we use statistical methods to determine what features are important, but I also understand that, as people, we want to consider certain features as important, even though statistically they may not make sense. Okay, let me be really practical for some of you who's getting lost in this conversation. Let's say we have an AI decide whether to give a business a loan or not a loan. Okay. Now, traditionally, when we build AI models and have the AI decide, as humans, we don't tell the AI like, "Hey, you need to consider the credit score, or you need to consider, the the where the applicant live, or these are what we call different features." Okay. Traditionally, the AI itself would figure out on its own what should be used to make a decision on whether an applicant should get a loan or not. Okay, and for the most part, it does a pretty good job, but uh, it is problematic to some degree because when we talk about backlash, is what if the AI decides, hey, race and gender is actually a very important feature. Okay, then now all of a sudden loan application is largely going to be based on your race and gender, you know? So I think that's what the question is all about. And this is the part that you need to understand about AI is that AI builds largely based on historical data. Okay. And as humans, we are very flawed in nature. Okay. We have our biases. And our biases do shine through in the AI models because the AI models are trained on our history, which reflects our human bias. Okay. And we don't actually have AI models that are not trained on historical data. And so that is definitely a situation where we want to do what we call human in the loop, where there are going to be situations where because our history does not necessarily reflect where we want to go as society, so we may not want to use AI in certain situations, and have humans navigate a future that we all want instead of letting AI navigate our future. Okay. So there's definitely certain contexts and situations where, there is a place for us humans to carve out a direction for the future that we want and not base it on an AI that was built on our history.
Yes, I love that line that you share, and you've shared that often, right? Like we get to create the future that we want if we can understand how this applies as a tool that we can leverage in such a powerful way. We have a leadership question. I'd love to start with Chad and then Sonia to jump in and even Brian. It says, how do we convey the message that time is a leader's most valuable resource? No amount of money can buy another minute of it. Once spent, it's gone, and it cannot be banked. AI help increase the realized value of time. How does AI help increase the realized value of time, even bring an increase enterprise value?
Yep. So I'll give examples in my world. I'm able to do more speaking engagements than I've ever been able to do before because I know the content, I know it intimately, but I used to spend hours trying to figure out the right stories or the right statistics to hit the market that we're speaking to. And with the use of AI, something that maybe took me 20 hours is now taking me 2 hours. So that means that in essence, I could prepare for 10 presentations or 10 speaking engagements or 10 team building events, where in the past I would have only been able to do maybe 1 or 2. It's knowing, in my opinion, and I'd love to hear, Brian and Sonia and Elijah's, in my opinion, it's knowing when to use the tool to help buy back time and to leverage time. I believe AI is a redeemer of time if you know how to use it. It's no different than, I'll give you an example. We used on ChatGPT. It was interesting. I took a picture of a boat. One of our coaches is a retired Navy SEAL. And one of the things we asked him was, I took a picture of a boat. I said, have you ever seen this before? He said, yeah, that's a ro-ro. I put that picture and I said, tell me what this is and why it's used. And literally in 20 seconds, they told me exactly what it was and why it's used. That would have taken me, in years past, phone calls, conversations, looking up stuff on the internet. In 20 seconds, I had that information. I confirmed and made sure that it was accurate information with the guy, Dr. Chris on our team. But that is such a powerful tool to redeem time, and business leaders have to be looking at the use of AI as a time redeemer so that they can use their other time for more impactful things than research, where, I think that's the simplest way to put it. It's a redeemer of time.
Yeah, well said.
And if I could just add, and I think what you said, Chad, was 100% correct. I think that the win, right, where we're looking for the win is what you do at that time, right? And like you were saying, you're prepping for other activities and other team building events and speaking engagements. So to me, that's where the win is, right?
Yep.
That extra money that you can save based on the efficiency and that extra time that you have, right? How are we going to use that extra time and extra money? And that's really, because I think eventually what's going to wind up happening, even on the curve, right? This technology is going to be the baseline, right? Everybody's going to be using it. This is now your baseline, right? Just like computers are the baseline today. It wasn't, 40 years ago, right? And that transition happened. But today, if you're not using a computer, you're in trouble, right? So I think eventually it's going to baseline out. And to me, we're looking for the wins, and I think now here kind of mindset, which is great. How are we going to apply that time, and how are we going to get that? Like, how are we going to use that as a multiplier for our business? And I think that's really the win. And you're doing a great job of that. And so yeah, I agree 100%. It's definitely a time saver. But then now we have this extra resource. What are we doing with that? How can we make that the multiplier?
That's good.
Good. Thank you, Brian.
Sorry, Danielle, did you?
No, you're up.
Oh, okay. I would say, on top of what, kind of piggybacking off of what Chad stated, the workload management and my time, as we all know, Chad and Danielle travel across the world. I am super insanely busy as well, as one of those people that travel and deal with a lot of people, in terms of when it comes to, I still have to do reports, I still have to do compliance aspects, proposal development, proposal review. So there is a lot of administrative work, even though I have a team. And so using task priority type of tools and algorithms to look at your urgency and importance of those business objectives and things that are to be scheduled. So like a project management tool is very helpful of using AI. Microsoft has Copilot and other, different things that are integrated, kind of going into somewhat of the question Elijah answered about looking at what you're already utilizing and using, and then looking at AI tools that are implemented and not dropping from those tools that you're already using, and making it more frustrating for yourself and your team, is looking at things that are already implemented into tools that you're already using, like Google, like Google. Microsoft products, especially Excel. There's so many things that are now implemented with ChatGPT as well as other AI products. And so now learning how to use those tools to then kind of amplify your work product. Another thing that I've really focused on as well is personalized task delegation. So looking at my employees' strengths and their workloads to be able to delegate tasks and look at reducing inefficiencies. The main goal, of course, is to improve productivity. And so we have a couple of students on board with us that are basically, as I mentioned, tapping into faculty and students that are basically looking at those trends and looking at that data for us to best analyze our team dynamics. So,
Oh, thank you for that.
It's good.
Thank you. We have a question here. How can a food manufacturer that has a physical factory best benefit from AI? Not so much land, but on the other three inputs. Elijah, if you could take that first.
Okay, so these are referring to the factors of production and what the macroeconomic impact on the food manufacturer. Okay, and I think Chad, if you remember that four processes an organization needs to go through.
Yeah.
I mean, if I was a food manufacturer, for sure, I would want to take the entire organization through that four different processes. So if we look at the four process, first is to bring that assessment into the organization to just see where everyone is in terms of their thoughts and beliefs on AI and try to bring an alignment there, so that all your future work is not going to be sabotaged or slowed down or hindered by people in the organization who have, it's the wrong kind, what we call non-aligned thoughts and beliefs. Okay. Then the second part is really to begin to equip everyone that is part of the organization in the food manufacturing, to be able to amplify and leverage their abilities and skills using AI, So in places where, in the past you might need like 4 supervisors or 5 supervisors, in that kind of situation, you might be able to do with just one supervisor at that point, if they leverage their abilities and skill with AI. And then the next step for food manufacturing is on the processes. Begin to look at processes and say, hey, how do we implement AI in that now that our people are already skilled in AI? How do we implement AI in our processes? Maybe we start bringing in AI into the video streams for quality control, maybe fully automated logistic distribution, and if you get really fancy, you can, on your raw material purchase side, you can have AI begin to predict prices of your raw material so that you can begin to buy raw material in situations where it's going to be lower cost than what you would if you just buy the raw materials on a regular basis, and then you can super fancy with that. You can have AI begin to speculate on the futures of your raw material, and even begin to make even more money from much lower cost. So that's kind of like the 3 phase. Then of course on the 4th phase, begin to really begin to develop some AI products that are going to be so unique that would 10x your business. Maybe like a fully automated AI manufacturing of your products, or maybe a fully automated AI marketing engine, or fully customized AI marketing for your clients and stuff like that. I would keep that to the 4th stage, and I think the sequence of implementing AI is as important as deciding what technology to implement within the organization.
Right.
Well,
thank you.
Yeah, Danielle, can I just add one thing on top of what Elijah just said? I think the sequencing of what you just said about sequencing is so key, because a lot of leaders will just say, I'm going to go do something, and they don't think about timing, sequencing, how it falls on our people. And that's why I just think the leadership with the AI is so key over the next 3 to 5 years, because you're going to have people that love AI and they're just going to drop it on people, and it's just going to shut them down. They're going to shut down. And the sequencing is so key.
Yeah, agreed. I know we lost Brian for just a few moments.
I'm back.
I don't know. Okay, good. I don't know if you're able to pick up from here, but I know that you have a lot of clients in the food industry. Is there anything that you'd like to add to that?
You know what? I actually lost connection for most of that conversation, so I apologize.
Okay.
I didn't catch it.
No, appreciate it.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on with the Wi-Fi.
But
But
glad you're back on.
yeah, thanks.
Sonia, is there anything that you would like to maybe add to that?
Yes, specifically to the area that or two areas that I would say would be great for food clients or entrepreneurs in general, small business owners, is in the customer discovery side of it and customer analysis. So your customer analysis is going to be important on one for your marketing and social media aspects and all of your outreach, but also just the time of day, the type of their age, demographic, the information, so you can better do target and opportunities. We've seen one of our cafes that noticed that it was mostly like odd time of day. Her market was more for college students for the vegan cafe, and then ended up being families and stay-at-home moms and professionals that were mostly the hospital healthcare that were her actual target audience. So she started to make more of a aspect of family type of like cooking classes, things like that, to best meet her audience. And so customer discovery, customer marketing to use AI and get that feedback and how to best do discounts and events around your customer base. The other side that Elijah mentioned is on the compliance side. So anything on quality control, I think is really important for any small business, but it definitely in the food industry and food manufacturing. As we worked with like 30 something thousand clients, you know, food definitely in New York State, as we know, is really important. So yeah.
It may be the most important thing.
I'm sorry.
Food may be the most important thing.
Yes, yes, most important thing, the way to my heart.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
I
think
think Danielle and I spend majority of our time that's not in the office in a restaurant.
I was actually going to say that if you all know us and you do know us well, everything revolves around food.
It does.
Food has to be at the center.
Yes.
But thank you. That was a great add-on. Great points. We have another question that came in anonymous. It says, I was surprised by how early on the presenters estimate we are in the innovation adoption curve for AI. What do the assembled experts see coming as we progress through the curve? Are there certain AI developments and experts predict will move the needle on adoption? Good question.
Yeah, I'll just frame it and then I'll hand it over to Elijah and then love to hear Brian and Sonia's. I think that I initially thought that that we would see adoption quicker than we actually are seeing adoption with AI. I know many of our conversations from a year ago, Elijah, was we got to move quick because people are adopting this real quick. And what I found is they're talking about it, but they're not adopting it. So that being the case, I just kind of love to hand it over and then what you guys are seeing on your end.
Are you going to Elijah first? Yeah.
Yeah, Elijah.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
So I think when we talk about adoption, and I absolutely agree with you, Chad. I think when we showed that curve, what we're talking about is business or organization adoption. Okay, and a lot of people in where things get really cloudy is that when we talk about AI adoption, it's easy to be caught up in the smoke of the ChatGPT adoption. Okay, ChatGPT adoption was really fast. Okay, it was like within 30 days, you know, they outdid the adoption of every other technology out there. Okay, but that doesn't mean that we see organizational adoption. Okay, organizational use are not necessarily organizational adoption. When we talk about organization adoption, we're talking about the ability for organization to use it to create value, whether in reducing costs or increasing revenue. Okay, even in like some of the forefront organizations like Meta, which is Facebook. Okay, we only saw the increase in value, and you can measure that by your revenue per employee, like maybe a year or two after they adopted AI. You know, so and these are companies that are really, really on the forefront. Okay, they're actually building their own LLMs. So you got to think other companies, you know, I think are even further out on being able to to see the value from that adoption, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, from my perspective, I see a lot of companies kind of sticking their toe in, but not kind of diving in yet. So I think it's somewhat fear. I think it's just maybe the it's not tailored enough yet to kind of dive in. And I think the other question kind of referenced how do we not lose those things that make us special. So I think that's what I say. So even the businesses that I see it utilizing it and benefiting from it to a certain degree, they're definitely not diving in yet. So I think it's just like anything else new. I think there is some just fear of we're not really sure if this is going to work well, and we want to test it out. And even myself, the firm included, we have our own software we developed over the last couple of years to help our clients and do certain things. There's a huge upside. We spoke with the company that did it, pretty recently, like, to add bots and do things like that. So we kind of framed it out, but we haven't really dove into it yet. And even things just like following up with clients, we can automate a lot of those types of things and help us, gather information during, we have renewal season, for example, where all the franchises have to renew their documents, right? We can automate a lot of that information gathering process, and that's what we're planning to do. But, it just, we built out the infrastructure first, and now we're just going to start kind of building on that. So, that's what I see from my perspective.
Yes, thank you.
I would say kind of what Elijah pointed out, and just add this last point is in order for there to be a needle to move around AI and the technology, he stated it's like 30 days, it was moving fast compared to any other technology in the past. And you're going to see that more and more as we see like our cell phones and things of that and televisions and other things advance very quickly and technology is outdated. So with that being said, on just AI features and AI implementation and solutions, to what Elijah stated, the way you're going to move or see the needle being moved in your organization is to utilize, it's not to replace human beings, it's to add, be a superpower. So what is the value going to be added? What is the value you're adding by utilizing and implementing AI to move your company forward? And so as I guess we're having this conversation around leadership and making those decisions is where it's going to move the needle, is how you're going to add value to your organization.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
Speaking my language for sure.
Then just one last thing, and then
sure.
To that point, and I really want to press this home. It's the leader's responsibility to make this a priority. If it doesn't become a priority with the leader, it will not become a priority with the team members. So, like, as I think about working with organizations, and sometimes when we're coaching, or the CEO or the C-suite, we got to challenge them to think through things that maybe they don't want to. And them not wanting to talk about it doesn't mean that I shouldn't be challenging them to talk about it, right? So that's where it needs to start. As a leader, we set the course, and if people don't see the leader saying we need to learn it, then the rest of the people won't learn it. When they see the leader saying I got to figure this out, then the rest of the people will say I got to figure this out. It's leading by example.
Yes.
Yeah, well said. We have quite a few questions. I know we're not going to get to all of them. Even e-commerce, they're asking about, how can AI help e-commerce? Somebody else asked, how can leaders use AI to be intentionally good in serving their teams? I feel like Sonia just touched upon that a little bit. We have quite a few that came in. Also, even one that brought it back down to how is AI impacting the day-to-day operations? And I know some of you touched upon that too, with some management and assistant AI with our daily activities. Any of those questions would any of you like to take? Also, I'm going to jump in. I know I'm shooting a lot out. I just want to try to cover. For those that we do not cover the questions, we will send an email, and if we do have your email, some of them came in anonymous. Some of them are here, but I'd love to actually hear about the e-commerce. I know that Brian and Sonia have clients that are in the e-commerce business, right? So Elijah, maybe you could start with that. How can AI help there?
I think e-commerce, again, e-commerce has many different categories, but I think the nice thing about e-commerce is that most e-commerce business already have data, that the AI can leverage very, very quickly. So where else in a lot of more brick and mortar type business, the data collection needed for you to really implement AI, it's going to take you a lot longer in your implementation time scale. Where else, whatever you can do in brick mortar, if you were to do that in an e-commerce level, usually it's less employees, and usually it's the data is already available. So when it comes to e-commerce, the main difference is that they can implement AI at a much quicker speed than a regular business. But the inverse is also true. Your competitors in the e-commerce space can do it at a much faster speed than your competitors can if you're brick and mortar. So you got to be really vigilant if you're in the e-commerce space right now to implement AI really fast.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think that one thing that we have to be aware of is I think I always, those of you who know me, I always think about probability. I'm always probability testing, because probability, I think, is the key when you really have to look at what's the upside, the downside, and then you got to manage that risk of whether you're willing to take it. I'll share this. I think it's a bigger risk to put your toe in the water on AI. I actually think it's this is my opinion, I think it's actually a bigger risk, because what happens is as you're learning, there's a whole learning curve, right? By putting your toe in and not jumping in, I think you actually take yourself away from the other parts of the business model that and you've been doing for a period of time. I think this is something where you have to really decide, am I going to be an AI company, or am I going to be an AI-driven company, or am I not? And if I'm not, then let me maximize my return right now and get as much as I can while my competitors are still trying to figure this out. But if I'm going to be an AI-driven company and I want to be around for a long period of time, I kind of need to jump in then. And I just think it's a big risk for companies that are kind of like not sure yet, so they'll try, but they're not. I think one of the things that we talk about at our company, and we're really starting to embrace it, is this whole process that I learned from our friend and mentor, John Maxwell, is test, fail, learn, improve, re-enter. He talks about the cycle of success and getting returns on failures. But we started implementing it, and we're actually having a person on our team design this so it goes up in our office. Test, fail, learn, improve, re-enter. And in improve, how can AI improve this? So as you go through that cycle of success, when you get to improve, it's not improve based off of just my knowledge and my understanding and my experience. How can AI help improve this and then re-enter? I think it's just a powerful conversation, a powerful methodology.
Yes. Would any of you like to add to that, or?
It's on the improved topic that Chad mentioned, but on the e-commerce side, again, like Elijah stated, it's utilizing the data that you already have, whether it's your POS system, as well as just anything that you're doing with your website or the marketing aspects that you have online, and then how to best utilize that data to then make better decisions within your business. It's already there because you are an e-commerce business. Now, how are you analyzing that? And so, as Chad stated, looking at the aspects of your business, whether it's sales, marketing, on the other aspects of saying, where can we implement AI to make it better useful for our time, as well as for our business to move forward. And as Chad stated, on the improvement side, I have like an example of that, of working on legislation right now because of the disasters in North Carolina and Florida. on, they already have bills within their state for disaster funding. Now, I've been utilizing my own experience and history from my colleagues, but then to revise a bill that can be implemented and enacted across the country in different states that have natural disasters. And so, like he said, how can we improve that language, improve the things based on the time and how things have changed? So yes, AI can be very helpful when you're improving information as well, or improving programs and processes.
That's great.
Yeah, and one thing on the fear side, the way I look at AI, thinking about it like the analogy of a football game, right? AI can give you a really good game plan, right, and talk to probabilities as far as what play is likely to work, right, things like that. But it takes the coach to make sure the players know where the play is. It takes the quarterback to actually make the play, and I think that goes to the EQ and AQ and those types of things, right? And so I think those are always going to stay. So I think the fear is, if it's seen that way, where it's just going to give us a playbook, and we still have to see it through as as leaders and humans. I think it'll make it a little less fearful, and people can kind of dive in. And the reality is, ultimately, if you're using AI to set your game plan, eventually the defense is going to as well, and that's going to be what determines the winner, right? So you're going to have AI on the other side having the defense. It could be your competitor, right? And that the winning variable is going to be you anyway, right? So kind of getting to that point. So I just think it's the fear. We have to kind of get over the fear, myself included. I'm talking to myself. And I think that's when you're looking at it that way, that it's going to give you the playbook, but it doesn't mean it's playing the game for you. Yeah, I think that's helpful to.
Yeah,
the football players still got to show up to the stadium on Sunday to play the game.
Yes. I genuinely enjoyed that, Brian. We're actually going to end our panel on that note.
Yeah.
It was a very good way of putting that all together. Like I said, we really do. We have quite a few questions. I'm going to send that out to you guys. I did not do their bios justice, so we'll send that. We'll share that with you guys as well. And this is going to kind of go in. There's one question here that this is going to go into what Chad's going to go into. It just says, considering the graphic which highlighted the 4 phases of AI, is there a realistic timeline for companies and businesses to invest in the first phase of awareness and at the same time be an early adopter?
Yeah. So I'll share this. There's 2 things that I want to just bring up here. The first is I just would ask everyone, if you really got value from this, it would help us to understand what was impactful to you, so we could be even more impactful to other organizations and other groups in the future. So I just ask you to scan the QR code. The second thing is Elijah and his company AI Matrix. For full disclosure, I'm also a partner in that company, but for Elijah has created a process that allows him to work with organizations for awareness. So I would encourage you, Elijah, can you give your email address if someone's interested in kind of just learning how to bring AI to their company and be more trained and more equipped? Can we just drop his email in the chat box? He's created some packages on how to do that, how to be more intentional, how to do it in group settings. I just think that if you could pick his brain and kind of learn what he's doing, I think it'll be tremendously valuable to your organization. So if we could just drop Elijah's email in the chat box. And Elijah, just say it for people that are going to listen to this in the future. Can you just say your email address?
Yes, it's Elijah, ELIJAH.LOW at AIMatrixSolutions.com.
There you go. Yeah, and I would just ask everyone on here just to complete this. And there are some packages that Elijah has created. If you're interested in figuring out how to bring it to your organization, there's packages there. And let us know let us know if you were on this webinar, if you do reach out to him, because there is a discount that he has applied to what he would normally charge to come into a company, but that's only for the people that were on this webinar today. So I just ask you, just take the time to complete this QR code, and we'll be able to kind of take in all that data. And I just want to thank everyone for joining us. I know this is so a lot of people were putting in the chat box. I was able to, since Danielle was leading this, I was able to go in. A lot of people are saying how timely and how relevant this is. And I just think it's such a timely conversation. And I want to thank our friends for joining us, because you guys brought so much value, and just your different perspectives from, working with franchisees and then working with small businesses across really all of America. Sonia, you've done that. So thank you guys for joining us. And Danielle, you did a great job of facilitating the conversation. And Elijah, even though I believe in AI, you're still my human AI.
That's awesome.
Thank you so much. Thanks.
All right,
Thanks
guys.
for
Thank you
having
so
me.
much.
Brian.
Appreciate all of you.
Yes,
Cool.
I hope the audience got what they needed, and thank you, Lions Pride, as well as Elijah for and Brian for joining us today. So good luck with everything. I hope there's another conversation about it.
All right.
Yes,
Thank
to
you.
be
All right, guys.
continued. All right. Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.